We're going to go ahead and stand and sing the next song. It's actually Angels from the Realm of Glory. It's number 277 in your red book if you wanted to follow along there. Angels from the realms of glory, wing your flight o'er all the earth. Ye who sing creation's story, now proclaim Messiah's birth. Come and worship, come and worship. Worship Christ the newborn King. Shepherds in the fields abiding, watching o'er your flocks by night. God with man is now residing, yonder shines the infant's light. Come and worship, worship Christ the newborn King. Sages lead your contemplations, brighter visions beam afar. Seek the great desire of nations, ye have seen his natal star. Come and worship, worship Christ the newborn King. May I have a seat? Thank you so much.
Now we bring forth the prayer box.
This is our prayer box. We keep it in the back of the sanctuary so it's available for you to write down your prayers and place them in the box. They'll sit here at Unity on the Mountain for about a month, where they'll be prayed over every Sunday. And then they'll go to Unity Village, where they are prayed over at Silent Unity for about another month. So let us just join together in prayer. And as we relax and move to that still place within us, let us lift up these prayers together in gratitude for the fulfillment to the highest good of all. And for this we say thank you, and so it is. Amen.
Amen. Now, Debbie, if you would, we'd like you to read us, and we'll read along with her the daily word.
Joy is discovering the presence of God within me. That's perfect. Unity co-founder Charles Fillmore wrote that joy is the happiness of God expressed through his perfect idea, humankind. Witnessing the unbridled joy of children on Christmas morning brings a smile to my face and gives me a warm feeling. Although my childhood may be a distant memory, joy remains an active part of my life. I find joy in the beauty of holiday decorations, in the fellowship of family and friends, and in giving and receiving gifts. I discover that my greatest joy is knowing and feeling the presence of God within me. I recognize and rejoice in God's presence in me and see it in everyone I meet. I know that joy is always present and can be called into expression at every moment. From Galatians 5:22. The fruit of the Spirit is love, peace, patience, kindness, generosity, faithfulness.
Let us go into a greater attitude of prayer as we say the Lord's Prayer. We're going to say it twice. One, the more historical version. The second time is maybe a paraphrase or another translation from another source. But it's both the Lord's Prayer. It's the answer to how do we pray. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts, as we forgive our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever. Amen. Our Father, who is as it is throughout the universe everywhere, your name is sacred, your kingdom is come, your will is throughout the earth given. You give us our needful bread from day to day, and you forgive us our offenses, even as we forgive our offenders. And you let us not enter into materialism, but you separate us from error. Because yours are the kingdom, the power, and the song of praise, from all ages, throughout all ages, sealed in faith, trust, and truth. We don't need to say it more than once. I'm sorry, David, that's my fault. I was the one that put the slide in there. Carol, if you would like to take it from here.
Oh, sure. Thank you. Namaste.
Namaste.
And I am so honored to be here in Little Unity on the Mountain, and new friends and old friends and family are here today. And I feel pretty darn lucky. We'll start with a little kind of a grounding and centering, so that we're ready to receive the gifts that are here for us today. So if you like, you can close your eyes. No, not necessary. So I want to welcome each of you here today. No matter how you come, no matter the burdens that you carry, I welcome you. Even if you have things on your list not done, and Christmas is soon upon us, I welcome you. Even if you have old worries or concerns, I welcome you here now. If you have people that you are missing right now, or if you feel alone in any way, we just get present, and I welcome you here to this moment now. Wherever you are in your life, knowing that this is the holiday, however you meet it, whatever it means to you, I welcome you to this space now. For we need each other, that two or more have gathered here today, and we are creating a holy space, and the holy space holds all of us. even our sadness and our grief, it also holds the joy and the bliss. Whatever you need today, this is a space for you to receive. Feeling your body, knowing that you are here and present. Feel the energy rest in the seat where you are sitting. And then open yourself to the degree you feel comfortable to allow the grace of God to move through your life, into your heart, in the way that is perfect for you today. If you can, take a moment and just maybe tell yourself why you are here today, or if you have a question or an intention, or if you are just here. Take a moment to get solid in that. Knowing that our attention leads the energy of life. You are in the perfect place, here and now. We need you. We are grateful to have you here. And so it is. I guess I'm on.
I guess I have coordinated with her.
Anyway, welcome everybody. Just so wonderful to have you here. And for me, this really is the Christmas service. And I love the fact you're knitting, because I actually get more when I knit. I can hear better. And it's so good to see all of you. I have to look at my title because it changes every time living Christ consciousness. You are the gift. Oh yeah. Anyway, this is really my Christmas celebration, and you can't have too many. Is how I see it. And my name is Carol, and all of you know me, but I always like to say, especially around Christmas time, I'm Christmas Carol. My parents met on Christmas Eve, and from what I understand, I was born and they were arguing about a name. I guess Karen and Barbara and a few others were up for grab, and then they couldn't decide, and days went by, and finally my mom said, we did meet on Christmas Eve, so Carol became the name. So. But I think there's a lot in a name, and each one of our names are sacred. And so is the name Jesus, and so is the name Christ, and Mary, and Joseph, and Amy, and Michael, and Pam. And I think today is living Christ consciousness. For me, it's how are we meeting the aliveness of this moment. And we happen to be coming to this moment, and the winter solstice was last night, the longest night of the year. And it's such a great time to be celebrating something so sacred, that is our light, because it's the darkest night of the year. And from the darkest space, the light can be seen. And the light can shift and change everything. You can see everything anew. And I think my welcome today was, there's a lot of people that I know that Christmas is not that great of a thing. For whatever reason, their traditions don't seem to hold their spirit, or they get caught up, and it's easy to get caught up in the chaos of our consumerism and our culture that's all about buying and spending money, and which there's actually nothing wrong with that, but in the context of sacredness. And that's what we're called to in the winter solstice, which has been around for thousands and thousands of years, even before the advent of Jesus to the world. It was a time to count your blessings, to slow down, to accept the quiet, to go in. And a long time ago, they didn't have lamps or lanterns. You were in the dark very early, and you could see the stars. So to bring it forward, I want to talk about the Christmas story. My background is Catholicism, so I was raised Catholic. And I think my favorite part of Catholicism was Christmas time. Not just because of the tree and the songs and the happiness in my family and the stories, but the story of the birth of Jesus. And so I just am going to tell you the little Christmas story. And it's interesting, I did some research, and the disciples, Mark and Matthew, and Luke and Matthew did the Christmas story. But each had a different intention and point of view. What we know as the Christmas story is really a compilation of the Christmas stories, but it serves today. So if you want to kind of do some research, the whole story is beautiful from the advent of Mary's conception all the way through. But I'm just going to take you to the moment of the manger. And that's, we know that Mary the pure and Joseph the strong, supportive, loyal man, set out on a donkey from Nazareth to go to Bethlehem. And they needed to go there because it was the time of the census. And the census was being taken, and Joseph needed to be accounted for. And it happened to be that Mary was very pregnant and ready to give birth. So she made it, thank goodness, to Bethlehem, and they went to the inn. And as we all know, that they knocked on the door, and they were refused because there wasn't room at the inn. But they were pointed to a manger in the back of the property. And it was a simple, humble manger. And they went there, and of course, Mary gave birth to Jesus. And Jesus was laid in the manger, was laid in a straw little container, where they would feed the animals. And there were animals all around, and the angels sang, and the shepherds came, and the wise men that brought gifts for the mind, body, and spirit. The Star of Bethlehem shone, and something had changed. See, this happened because consciousness was right. There were prayers and people praying that there be a new way of seeing life. It was a very, very hard, rough, and contentious life in those days. And the wise people of the time, the people that would give the offerings and say the prayers, would be knowing that something good was coming. So many, many people were preparing their hearts and preparing the way for something that was new. It was a new thing that was coming. And for some people that meant a person, a being. And surely when this child that was born out of purity and was protected by loyalty and kindness and concern and found a way in the most humble of buildings, when that child was born, that child Jesus, it was the time was right and right. Jesus was named the Christ, but in the mystical way of looking at this, there is no the Christ. He was the advent of Christ consciousness. He was the embodiment of the love that people had been waiting for and longing for and preparing a space for. I love that. That like lands in me so. I can feel chills because it doesn't feel like it's here. Now Jesus was a great teacher and a prophet, and he lived the life, and he was raised knowing, excuse me, being supported in a way that was holy. He was held in a space that knew he was sacred. His parents knew it. His community knew it. And the people that were the people of the religion knew it of the time. And they held a space for this child. And this child was born not as a place to be worshipped or a person to be worshipped, but as a message of love and light. And that all of us now, the consciousness has arisen in this very humble manger. That the light has come and has always been in you, and we will hold a space for that. I don't know, the story of Jesus has become so alive for me in the last month as I've been preparing for this, because I needed to see things a little differently. I've been kind of caught up in the political scene here and some of the environmental concerns and just family difficulties and challenges. And, you know, God's grace led me to kind of dive a little deeper. But I'm curious about, what does Christ consciousness mean for you? And how is that landing in you, and how is that showing up in your life? You know, although I'm standing up here, it's really all of us that are creating this space today. And this is a healing space. And this is a space of life and love. Can I just invite some of you to share, what does Christ consciousness mean to you this year, this day, in this moment? Where is it landing with you? That beautiful child that was supported and held. Can you just bring that in? And where is it showing up in your life? And we'll just open kind of the field if you have anything you'd love to share.
Well, just like we were talking earlier about my grandson, 4.5 years, but he's so in touch with that heart, the heart of love and joy. And when I think of that inner Christ, he embodies that. And I want to be like that and feel the love and joy, unconditional and happiness. And share that with others.
Yeah.
Make other people smile.
I love that. And those children know it. Like, children will speak the truth. They know what love is. They know what acceptance is, and forgiveness and kindness, and they're just remarkable. And he is your heart. He's also our heart. That's beautiful. Marie?
Well, for me, it showed up in your meditation today. The things that you said, I needed to hear today. They were just, and so Christ consciousness was there.
Beautiful. And thank you for that. So we create together the space of oneness and holiness, the wholeness. It's beautiful. Olga?
As an older person, I find myself getting jaded throughout the year. You know, everything I've done that, I've seen that, and at this time, it's like a renewal.
Oh,
It serves as a renewal for me.
that's beautiful. Thank you, Olga. And we were just speaking, we're always renewing our faith. We're always being born again. Thank you.
It's so good.
Someone, yeah?
Well, in the 90s at this church, I was introduced to A Course in Miracles. And I think that was where the light began to dawn, shall we say. And that what the Course in Miracles teaches, A Course in Miracles teaches, is we are all the Christ. There's not an exception on this planet. We are all the Christ. We don't all receive that message or accept it as true. But I believe it, and I see it. As much as I am capable, I see it in everyone.
That's beautiful. 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 Yeah.
Maybe this is kind of in an opposite way that I want to experience, because, and for the new year, I want to experience more Christ's presence in my body, because I feel like a lot of times I don't take good care of my body as I need to, but my body is the temple of God, so to have more of that consciousness for the new year.
Just beautiful. So you can embody Christ consciousness if you take care of it. Yeah, beautiful, Debbie. Pam?
You know, I'm listening to you speak, I was thinking it's interesting to me that the Christ consciousness is born on the darkest of nights. Do you know what I mean? That the light is born from the darkness.
Yes.
You know, and it's that darkness that really makes us appreciate the light.
Yes.
You know, that really brings it into sharp focus. Versus, you know, baby born in April where you're out in the daffodil.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Beautiful. The cliff.
Yeah. I had an experience that I kind of, Pam's experience, words reminded me of. I was sitting in my man cave. It's also my wife's cave too. The dog joins us there too. Anyway, I have a picture of my mom and dad and her mom and dad and a bunch of other stuff that sit across from the chair that I'm in. And I felt the presence of my ancestors through them in those pictures. And then I thought, well, maybe I better look for it everywhere. And that's why I read John, talking about the God in all of us. And Robert Farrell was talking about God being in everything, which also is part of that passage of John. So I realize it's not that God is not in everything, it's just that I don't recognize.
So beautiful. So a time of recognition.
That's Christmas to me, is
That's
recognition.
Christmas. And Donna.
I think it's showing up for me this Christmas just as extreme gratitude. Like when I moved here about 5 or 6 years ago, and I am just I feel so blessed with the people I've met here, you know, in the city of Huntsville, and just the open-heartedness of the people here, and I just feel that Christ consciousness just radiating so strongly.
That's beautiful. And you know, and what we're doing is we're opening a space as each of you are speaking. It's food for our own fire, our own light. And there's so many ways to meet this time. And it can easily go by, but if you unplug a little bit from media or your iPhones, and maybe sit by the tree, by yourself, and put the lights on. And just quiet yourself. There's a whole other experience. I'm going to read just a little saying by John O'Donoghue, an Irish poet. He's one of my favorites. At Christmas, time deepens. The Celtic imagination knew that time is eternity in disguise. They embrace the day as a sacred space. Christmas reminds us to the glory in the simplicity and the wonder of one day. It unveils the extraordinary that our hurried lives conceal and neglect. I'm going to read that again, it's just so beautiful. At Christmas, time deepens. The Celtic imagination knew that time is eternity in disguise. They embrace the day as sacred space. Christmas reminds to glory in the simplicity and wonder of one day, this day. It unveils the extraordinary that our hurried life often conceals and neglects. So, Jesus is such an important figure and teacher in how he lived his life in compassion and forgiveness, and brought the love to his life and walked it. He embodied that. He was a consciousness. He wasn't the Christ. He embodied Christ's consciousness. Everything is the beingness. It's happening now. There's nothing that is a state. Even Jesus being the Christ Don't you know in your own life, if you have a grandchild or a niece or a nephew or a child, when you hold that child, when they're an infant or 2 or 4 or 6, or if you have fuzzy-faced children and you hold them, don't you know Christ consciousness is there? That consciousness is arising, just like Cliff said, having eyes to see, having ears to hear, having that quiet space, allowing yourself to go into the darkness so that you can see the light by contrast. You know, our culture so much is about, oh, cheery, joy, joy, and I like a good time. And girls just want to have fun. But you know what I've learned about birthing this consciousness is that you have to meet the dark. And we were brought on this earth just like Jesus as a real child and a real man, a real teenager, and who had to walk and deal with family and politics and things that weren't fair and right. And we are given that too. We were all born in this time and era, and we have our challenges. We have it personally, and we have it within our community and globally. But we are asked to tend something humble, something that's so precious, and that is our manger. It is this body. And this body is our carrier. It's the connection between heaven and earth. Wasn't that what Jesus was? Isn't that what we celebrated when we lift that child up? The mystical meaning is that this was the time, this was the awakening, that the stars aligned and were read, the wise man forecast. And this is the time that you know you're in Christ consciousness when you open your hearts, and you will feel Christ consciousness when you forgive someone, when you have someone that owes you a debt but you let it go. If you have an expectation and you release it. If you have a sadness and a grief and you allow it to be, that's also Christ consciousness. It's having the full experience but standing and knowing and having faith that there is a light that is leading our life. And we're going to take that time and tune in and move into it. I have a story to tell you. My Irish mother, who is now 85, I hope she doesn't listen to this because she'll get mad at me for saying that, would tell me a story about her Christmas. And I just want to speak about traditions right now, because right now we're in thick in our traditions. And I was very curious about my mom and dad's traditions and rituals. And my mom would always tell a story, and I thought it was a little odd story, but I want to tell you it right now. She grew up in a Catholic church, and she was raised in a Catholic school. And they went to school every day, and they had Mass every day. So around Christmas time, the big Mass was not the everyday Mass, it was Christmas Eve. Now, she lived in Michigan, outside of Detroit in Ferndale, and almost every year I would say they had a lot of snow. She came from the poor section of town, the Irish section, right next door to the Polish section. And so they didn't have a car to go to church. And her mom was really into going, and she had many other children to tend. My mother was the oldest. So her two oldest children, my mother Denise and my Uncle Pat, on Christmas Eve would get ready for midnight Mass. This is the story she would tell me, is that she was about 11 and her brother is about 10, and they would get their boots on and they would get their mittens on. It used to have the string, you know, so that you could get your coat on and you wouldn't get them lost. And you get your hat on and your scarf, and if you're lucky, there'd be a little snow falling. And they would set off to probably, about a half mile to the church, St. Joseph's, for the midnight mass. And what she talks about is that her and her brother would have this special time year after year, and they would walk out all bundled up. You know how that is if you've been from the north. And they would usually have fresh snow. And sometimes the snow would be crunchy, if it was a little cold and it melted down. And they would be walking across the fields. And there would be no other mark on the field. They could hear their feet crunching. And they could see the blue light from the yellow moon shining on the snow. And it glittered. It glistened. And oftentimes just soft snow would start to fall. And it would be so quiet. And they would giggle together and hold hands and run across the field. And in that moment, there was sacredness. They had entered into a holy space. It wasn't about the Mass. It was the embodiment of the joy theme. Even in the cold, even leaving the family behind or having to walk, there was no matter. There was something special. So we all have that opportunity. And I just would like to ask, traditions are so important. In so many of our traditions, the birth of Christ was probably not in the winter solstice, but is perfect because He is the light. He is the light to shine us to our own light. But before that, the pagans brought us so many traditions, and they were all about renewed life, about quieting yourself and getting ready for the spring, and acknowledging where you were. And so we have the Christmas trees and the wreaths to remind us of the green coming, and the heart's hope and belief in the future. So we all have those, but what is the tradition that will bring you home? Or do you have a ritual, or would you like one that will bring you home to your Christ consciousness, to that light within you? If you have something that you'd like to share that your family has, or maybe something new that you're trying, or if you have a comment, let's share with each other for ideas and spark this imagination. Wendy, so good to see you.
Good to see you too. On Christmas Eve, we go to our daughter's house, and we make Christmas cookies, and we all decorate them and everything. And when I was a child, my grandmother used to make this stuff called chocolate gravy. And so on Christmas Eve, we allow ourselves to have butter and biscuits, and I make a big breakfast, and that's our meal. But we also have the time together, and it's very special to me.
I hear it in your voice. You are deeply touched. You are calibrated to each other at the heart, right? It's beautiful. Thank you. Thank you. Does anyone else want to share a tradition that they have? How about you, Olga?
Coming from a Hispanic background, we celebrate the Three Kings, not Santa Claus.
Oh, yes.
And that would be the 5th of January. And we would get boxes and get grass and put dry corn, put them under our beds with a little bit of milk for my guy. And then all that would be gone by the time we woke up.
Well, that's
But the preparation of finding the right box and, the juiciest grass and the prettiest corn and all of that, just made our hearts soar.
That's so, you created such a sacred space.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's so beautiful. Thank you. And Amy?
Well, and it's again, it's not about the story, but it's about the closenesses. I remember when I was little, and it was the night before Christmas, and my grandfather read it, and my dad read it, and when I'm doing that now with my grandson, and it's not the story, but it's the calm and the peace, the experience. Everybody's quiet, listening very closely.
Yeah.
And it's to me, that's a very sacred space, and I want to carry on that tradition in my grandson.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. It feels like you are carrying your ancestors forward.
Oh, yeah.
It's beautiful. Mike?
This is a tradition that I don't know if it started out that way, but it has become this way. We put together a puzzle,
Oh.
and it brings family together. The first one was when we lived in California. Still, it just rehung the first one we ever did. This has been 20 years ago, probably.
Wow.
I remember my mother helped us do it, and the kids have seen that for years. Well, now our daughter she says that's a tradition. So we have puzzles. So we have puzzles that have been glued together, and even not just, it brings together, my wife says, you guys are crazy staying up till 3 in the morning working on this puzzle. But it really does bring, I know our daughter and myself together because we work on it a lot, but the other parts of the family as well are a piece of that. So with the pictures being framed, you can get that vision of when did we do that puzzle and who was there. So it is very much a family. So we're ready to go for a puzzle again.
That's so beautiful. Well, it's so many memories are a part of our traditions usually. Take the good ones, the ones that serve you, and that's what we get to choose at this time. I'm going to share with you a memory about embodiment, and I was thinking about why the manger was so important to me. When I was a little girl, my mom had gotten a simple manger. I think my dad actually made it, and he cut a hole in the roof so the star would shine down, like you put a light bulb there, like a little bulb. And so it would shine down into the little manger where the Christ child was. And we had little figurines, and from the time I was little until I left the home, that manger would always be set out. And for me, I had a great imagination, and I love those figurines. Mary was so pretty. I mean, she did her blue, she had her blue gown on, and Joseph looked so sincere, and and there were like cows and sheep. Oh, it was a great, and then the 3 wise men, and I could actually like make them move, like, oh, there's the star, let's go, and I could play on that. But when I was moving those wise men, I felt wise. I was like bringing the gifts to the little baby, and when I would place Mary, next to the baby, or try to have her hold the baby, which was like this. I would make her hold her, and I was like, I could feel that nurturing energy, that love, no matter how old I was. I'm thinking pretty little, about 5 or 6. And Joseph, I could feel like he's going to protect everybody here, but he was so kind, like my daddy. I could feel that inside of me. And at some point, I moved all the people away, and I brought in the cows. And I made sure that they were right over the manger where Jesus was. And I brought in the sheep and the little dog, and I would have it lay underneath the manger. And there was an angel, and I could bring the angel right down, and she would come in, swoop in. And I could feel that holiness, and I could feel the songs that were alive in me, away in the manger. And I embodied every piece of that. My little girl was a mystic. Your little girl and your little boy is a mystic. You not know how to hold this space. How were you when you were a child, when you were in joy? Especially around this holiday. When there was was there some place where it was a good place for you to be? So, we went on a bit, so I guess I better wind it up. But I want to say that
We are privileged to be here with each other, that it's by no mistake that we have gathered here to remember that that we're all Christ consciousness arising, and that the story of Jesus was an important story. Look at how it lives and still rolls out. But in the mystical way, I'm inviting you to take that in and have the baby, have that baby be alive in you, supported and loved, expected to be the love and the light, to be nurtured, and bring that into yourself. Surround yourself by people that love you. Give yourself some quiet space. Find the manger within. Find that humble space where we deeply bow and let the love shine through. I'm going to close with a dream prayer that I had when I was preparing for this. I had a dream and a prayer came up, and I just like it. It's a little hippy-dippy, but so I'm going to read it. So this is the dream prayer, and this is my hope for you all to tune in. Turn on your heart light, shine your love inwardly, and recognize and support and express the Holy Spirit within. Share your light everywhere you walk. By your love, support others in this wondrous field of love and light. Being in the joy brings the joy of being. You are the gift that you have always been waiting for. And I honor you.
We're going to go ahead and, because of first Tom, we're going to actually sing 271 and then 270 in the Red Book, Medley and Manger for Carol. So let's go ahead and stand. And if you wanted to pull it up, I think you know the song. If not, it's 271 in your songbook.
Heavenly home.
you.